So ever since I made this channel, from time to time I get frequent messages with people asking me how to learn about fashion. And I have made a video on that, so if you're interested in that, check it out. I'll leave a icon and I'll leave a link to the video in the description. But what I'm talking about today is I'm addressing a very specific question I get all the time. And this question, and I've had it in live streams, I've had it in DMs, is when new people are getting into fashion. And what I mean by fashion is like getting into more like the history of fashion, high-end fashion, stuff like that. How do they navigate learning about fashion? Because there's so many different things to learn about and there's so many things to know, and they feel a bit kind of like they feel like it's daunting and it's a bit overwhelming, which it kind of is, and I can understand that. But I think it's good to address this because there's a lot of people that are in this situation, and at one point I was in this situation, and by all means I don't know much about fashion. If I sat beside a fashion professor, I'd look like I've not learned anything about fashion, but in terms of like, I know some things at least. And my philosophy for it is just find what you're interested in and study about that, and then just over time you'll find what interests you, and then it will lead you into a rabbit hole and you just get deeper into that. So when I first got into high-end fashion, I learnt about Yohji Yamamoto because that was my favorite designer. That was who I was that's who I was introduced to. So I just started to learn about Yohji. Then I found out that Yohji is part of the Japanese 3. And then of course I learned about Issey Miyake and Rei Kawakubo. And then it just led you along the rabbit hole of, oh, there's these other Japanese brands like Number 9 and Undercover. Then you learn about those, and then you find out who are the people who came before these guys. And then I learned about designers like Kansai Yamamoto. And then after that I started to get into the European side of things. Like, I was just wondering, like, why is Vivienne Westwood so highly regarded? And then I did research on her. So that's how I kind of went through that rabbit hole. But it all started from being interested in one thing, which was Yohji Yamamoto and the way he designs, and trying to understand it. So with people getting into fashion, find what you like. If what you like is streetwear, look into designers who have more of a street aesthetic. Look into like the history of Bape, because even when you look into the history of Bape, it will lead you into other things. It will lead you into learning about Virgil, and then if you learn about Virgil, of course you're going to have to learn about Louis Vuitton. Then you might learn about all the designers that have been at Louis Vuitton, like, you know, people like Nicolas Gasquier, people like Marc Jacobs. So it really just depends on what angle you choose to take in terms of learning more about fashion. And of course, like I said in the video, there's many different ways to learn about fashion: by reading books, reading magazines. I would suggest that people read books last, because the thing about books is you have to know what you want to buy a book about. And books that are about really general things, from my experience, aren't the best books to read. So I'd say things like magazines, books, of course, later on, watching documentaries, joining fashion forums online and stuff like that. And to get deeper into that, one thing I don't really like about the industry right now is this idea of gatekeeping. And I don't want to like pick on some people, but especially in communities like Rick Owens or CCP, Carl Christian Powell, most of the people that are into like CCP, Rick Owens, they have this level of elitism, this aura of elitism that surrounds them, that if someone is getting into Rick Owens or trying to find out what it is, and they ask questions in like these type of forums, people just dismiss what they say and just be like, you don't belong here, you don't know anything about fashion. But how can they learn anything when you won't even help them learn anything? And I feel like in high-end fashion especially, there's this really, really big problem of these, I like to call them avant-garde whores. Like, these are the avant-garde hype beasts. These are the guys who, the whole thing of them, their whole being, their whole existence, and this is going back to the mentality of a hype beast, is you want to seem like you know more than people, or you want to seem like you're on a higher level. It's almost like they're so insecure about trying to maintain this aura of being higher than someone else, that's why they behave that way. And to me, a hype beast is someone who wears things not particularly because they like it or they really love the brand. It's more so because they want to put themselves on a higher level, and that's the whole thing about flex culture. Because the reason why now you have hypebeasts that wear Carol Christian Powell or Rick Owens is because they're not real fans of Rick Owens. They don't really love that stuff. They don't really love Rick Owens as a designer in terms of his design language. They just know that if they wear Rick, people are going to think they're stylish and they're on a certain level. So when they see new people getting into it, their whole thing is like, no, Rick Owens is an exclusive club. You're not allowed here because I'm part of this club, and for it to be exclusive, it can only be a few people. And honestly, I really despise people that are like that. And it's just an issue because I think those type of people, the people that discourage new people from getting into the higher end side of fashion and getting into, you know, a deeper into the fashion history and those type of things. And so just to explain kind of this concept to people who are just getting into fashion, I'm so sorry. I apologize on all of their behalf. The only issue is there will always be idiots like that. Unfortunately, the elitists, the people who try to behave like you're new, you don't belong, like why are you asking questions, you should know that, go read a book, those type of people. Those people will always exist because there's always an idiot in fashion who wants to feel like they're on a higher level than other people, when at some point they were at that same level where they didn't know anything, which is so funny. And they used to complain about people behaving the same way to them, and now they're in a position where they know about these brands, they have a lot of knowledge, they have information, and they don't want to pass it on. So yeah, it's very unfortunate that the fashion community is like that. Hopefully it changes. Hopefully people start to be more willing to share information, give people tips instead of just act like an absolute prick. But yeah, that's really what I wanted to address in this video. Just that if you're starting to get into fashion and starting to learn about fashion history or high-end brands or things like that, avant-garde fashion, whatever it might be, don't think of it as you need to learn everything. No one knows everything. I barely know anything about fashion. I know it seems like I do, but the thing about making YouTube videos is I'm only going to make a YouTube video about something I know, which is why it might come across like I know a lot about fashion, but I don't know as much as like people think I do, because I'm just not going to make a video about something I don't know about, if you think about it like logically. So honestly, people portray themselves as knowing more than they do, and I kind of do that as well, but not deliberately, because obviously I make YouTube videos and I'm not going to make something, like I'm not going to make a CCP video because I don't know much about CCP. So whatever I do talk about, I've done a lot of research into it. So it might come across like I'm this fashion knowledge person and brainiac. I barely know much about fashion, trust me. So yeah, no one really knows as much as it seems. So really just find what you're interested in, look into those kind of brands and kind of try to seek more knowledge on those brands, and I assure you it will lead you into different directions, and over time you will start to learn more. I hope I've been able to help guys in that position and kind of help guys get over feeling like learning about fashion is daunting, and I hope that you guys just ignore the fashion elitist crew, the avant-garde whores, because those guys always exist, unfortunately, and I apologize once again on their behalf. But yeah, comment down your thoughts below on like all this gatekeeping and elitism in fashion, and yeah, subscribe to my Patreon. There's a lot of good content on my Patreon right now. The link to that is in the description below, and stay tuned for more videos in the future.